Hey Cake Chums, and welcome back to the Mr. Baker's Cakes Kitchen and episode 1 of Getting to Grips With, where I'll be having a go at a new skill or technique that I haven't tried before. In this, the first episode, I'm going to be having a go at embossing on cakes, because in spite of the generosity of all of these brands, would you believe I've never really tried it? I'm definitely the literal embodiment of all the gear and no idea. Let's get to the video. Now, embossing on cakes isn't exactly a brand new idea. I think I bought my first cake and cookie embossing kit around about 6 years ago actually. It's one of those ones where it comes with a tiny little applicator like this and loads of little letters that you can slot in to write your message on your cake or cookie. And I've definitely got loads of use out of it over the years. But then about 18 months ago something changed and two brands appeared on the scene, and they'd taken this relatively simple gadget, I guess, and given it a significant upgrade. Both hailing from Ireland, incidentally, both the sugar press and the sweet stamp have a whole array of stunning, beautiful fonts that you can use to create messages on your cakes and your cake boards. And in fact, over time, they've expanded their product ranges to include a whole host of kind of extra shapes and objects and other decorative elements that you can use to emboss patterns and pictures onto your cakes as well. Now, as I say, both brands and a couple of others have been incredibly generous over the last 18 months, and I'm almost quite embarrassed that I haven't yet got around to having a play with all of the oodles of goodies that they have sent me. And I know that lots of you guys have been using them for months and months and months, so do be kind. This is very much my first attempt at embossing on cakes with this new style of product. And if you have any top tips on how I can get better results after you've seen what could be a fairly laughable first attempt, then please do head down to the comments and let me know. Oh yes, by the way, I have a new lens, so hopefully we should be able to avoid the issue that we have sometimes of you either not being able to see what I'm doing here, or not being able to see what I'm saying here. You can see it all at the same time. The downside is you can also see all of the the corners where I shove things out of the way while I'm filming. So you're gonna have to pretend that you can't see those, just keep your attention here and everything will be fine. Do let me know what you think of this new kind of filming setup though. I do hope it makes things a little bit easier for you to see and kind of understand what's going on. So yeah, head down to the comments and let me know your thoughts. Okay, so again, I know that lots of you have already used these kind of embossing kits before, but I still am very much a noob when it comes to them. So I want to kind of have a little bit of a go at lots of different things you can do with them. So in today's video, we are going to cover a dummy cake with icing and do some embossing on the side. We're going to cover a cake board and we're going to do some embossing around the edge. I've even got some of these kind of little elements. Completely and utterly in love with this set from Sweet Stamp by AmyCakes, so I'm going to perhaps do some cupcake toppers using those. And I also have lots of these additional elements from Sugar Press as well, so I'd like to kind of see if we can maybe add some detail to the cake or to the cake board using some of these. And then of course you will have seen, if you've watched my visit to PME video, which I will link up in the corner for you, you will know that they also gave me a set of their kind of impression fonts as well. So while we're having a play with all of these, we're also going to have a play with the PME kit. And then hopefully by having a play with the Sugar Press and the Sweet Stamp and the PME Fun Fonts, I'll find which kit kind of works best for me, and it will hopefully help you decide which set could work best for you as well, if perhaps you've been umming and ahhing about picking some embossing kits up for yourself. But of course, before we get cracking on some embossing, we need to cover our cake board and we need to cover our cake dummy. Now, I'm not going to do that on film today because I did shoot a dedicated how to cover a dummy cake video, which went up last Sunday. So if you haven't seen that yet, again, I'll link it up in the top corner for you. Go and check that out first and then come back here ready to have some fun with embossing kits. Anyway, I'll see you in a minute. Okay, and so through the magic of editing, I now have one covered dummy cake and one covered cake board. Now, as I've already mentioned, we do have a few different products to look at today, and we're going to start with the Sweet Stamp from AmyCakes. Now Amy originally sent me a box of goodies, gosh, it must be around about this time last year, so that's how long I've kind of had them sat there waiting for me to turn my attention to them. And I remember thinking at the time there were a couple of tweaks that I would have liked to have seen made to make them a little bit more user-friendly. And it just so happens that in the interim month since she sent me that first box and then sent me a more recent one, she has actually made pretty much all of the changes that I had kind of thought of when I was looking at the product. So I'll take you through what it looked like before and then what it looks like now, and you can kind of see what I mean. So if we start with the sweet stamp in its kind of initial iteration, this is very much what you used to get sent if you ordered a set of sweet stamps from AmyCakes, and then you could also order this pickup pad as well. Now if I open these up, you'll see what I've got here is, I believe it's called the Handwriting Set, and it comes with the upper and lower case letters, and they're both in these little trays. Now this is absolutely fantastic for storing them in, but one of the big complaints I used to see from people who had bought them online is that they were very easy to dislodge. Because they're so loose, all it takes is kind of moving it a little bit too quickly, or apparently the worst horror is actually dropping it, and they go absolutely everywhere. Now because I don't want to spend the next 20 minutes picking up these letters and slotting them back in, I'm not going to demonstrate what that would look like to you. But Amy was really kind of receptive to the feedback that she got, and so now if you order a sweet stamp kit, they actually come in one of these lovely boxes with a metallic closure. It's still very much the same, it's still the tray with all the letters on it, and they're still nice and loose in there so they're easy to pick up, but they're now stored inside this lovely tray with a metallic closure so that then your letters aren't going to come out. So I have to say, I think this is a fantastic idea, and also it just makes it feel like a nice premium product. Similarly, when I first checked out the original box she sent me, their kind of signature pickup pad looks like this. So it's kind of plain plastic on one side and it says sweet stamp, and then on the other side was this kind of sticky material that allows you to pick up your letters. It then has this kind of plastic cover that you can peel off, and then you get this nice sticky surface here, and then when you're done, put your plastic cover back on. Until next time. Now again, an absolutely fantastic idea, but one of my thoughts was, well, but if you are using it to apply to a cake, for example, I felt that it was really important that you could see what you were doing on the cake. And lo and behold, in the more recent pack that Amy has sent me, the pickup pad now looks like this. So again, it's still got this plastic layer that you peel off, leaving you with that nice sticky surface, but it is now see-through, which means that of course if you then have arranged your letters and you're applying them to a cake, you'll be able to see what you're doing. So again, a really fantastic idea. We do love a brand that's really responsive to the needs of their consumers. Now I do have to admit, I am a big fan of these kind of really swirly handwriting style fonts, so I definitely want to have a play with this set today. And I'm thinking what I might do is write a little message around the side of my cake board. I have seen lots of people using these online, so I've definitely got a bit of a head start compared to some people. And I've seen that there are lots of different ways that you can apply your sweet stamps to your boards or your cakes. One of those is that you can arrange your message kind of on your workboard first of all, and then use your pickup pad, I believe it's called, to press onto the letters, lift them up, and then apply them to the board. But I've also seen people doing it where they literally just put them straight onto the cake board and then just use the pickup pad to take them off again. And that to me seems like a much better idea, because of course it means I can arrange them exactly how I want them. Now I never got to make a cake for the end of the school year like I normally do, so I'm thinking that I might make this cake a schools out themed cake. So from the capital letter set here, I'm going to take the S and the O, and then from the lowercase set here, we're going to take the rest of our lettering. So we're going to need a C, now these are quite fiddly, I will admit, but I know that I've seen Amy demonstrating these at the shows, and she used a piece of sugar paste to pick them out. That seems to be working a lot easier. So S-C-H-O. Now you do only get one of each letter in these sets, so if you have a letter that repeats, like the O in school, I'll show you what you do with that in just a moment. Now, it is really hot in here, by the way, I haven't actually mentioned that, but the UK is once again experiencing a bit of a heat wave, so do bear with me if things are a little bit sticky. And then if I set these aside, I can arrange my letters onto my cake board. Now we kind of want to arrange it as though the letters are joined up. So there's my C, H, O, space for another O, and what I'm looking for is to make sure that kind of that space from the edge is reasonably consistent. It doesn't have to be perfect because of course handwriting isn't perfect. Okay, so that's what it looks like at the moment with the lettering on the cake board. And then I believe it is as simple as pushing them in using the clear piece of perspex that comes with the pickup pad. Now I've also seen online as well that you need to push in a lot lighter than you might imagine. So I know a lot of people that said they've struggled with these, it's because they push them right down until this is touching the surface of the sugar paste. Whereas if you only want to paint your lettering, all it needs to be is a very faint impression just to give you the outline. If you want to fill the impression with something perhaps like these tiny micro pals, which Amy also sent me, then yes, you maybe want to push a little bit deeper, but for the purposes of just painting, you don't want to go too deep at all. So I'm thinking we'll just go for it and see what happens. Okay, and then again over here. And then I just really gently want to move that O so that I can do another one. And then, in theory, I should be able to lay this on top. And honestly, I've never done this before, so I'm very much making it up as I go along. And then lift the letters off like that. And that definitely worked, so really impressed with that pickup pad, although I have noticed that clearly I don't push as hard with my left hand as I do with my right hand, so I'm just going to give those first letters a bit more of a squeeze. And same with the S. And there you should be able to see my message, "School's out," written around the edge of my board there. And then you get extra fun because you almost get to do a puzzle when you put all your letters away again. Now you can also use a similar technique, as I said earlier, to apply a message to the side of your cake as well. So, for example, on this part, I might decide to write the name of my class that I've just said goodbye to. And they were called Finch's class. There are clearly certain letters that are definitely trickier to pull out than others. So F-I-N-C-H-E-S. And then what we can do again is lay those letters out and then use the more solid part, the more plastic part, with the tacky pickup pad. Place this onto the letters, and you'll notice that I laid these out the correct way round, like so, because then when you look at it with the side you're going to apply, that's when it will be back to front. And then with this one, it's as simple as, I believe, rolling it around the cake. So we're going to give that a try. I'm a little bit scared again, so do bear with. Okay, so that was definitely a lot trickier, but I don't think it was helped by the fact that I'm using a dummy cake, because the cake actually moved while I was applying the message to it, and I think that's because the spikes in my board, which I showed you how to make last week, weren't particularly deep. So I wonder how easy it is to go back in just with a single letter. Oh, definitely actually. So that wasn't too tricky at all. So using just a single letter, as long as you're quite delicate and make sure you don't shove your fingers into the icing, does seem doable. And don't forget, of course, if this was a real cake, it would be a lot heavier, so you wouldn't have kind of the issues I'm having with the cake moving. This is another one of the many reasons why I prefer to work with real cake instead of dummies. Okay. So anyway, so we now have Schools Out written on my board and Finches, which was the name of my class, written on the side of our cake. Okay, so that was Sweet Stamp. I think now we need to have a go with the sugar press. And I kind of want to do like a side-by-side comparison almost. So I'm thinking I'm going to add some more text to the same board and cake. This could end up really messy, but we'll see how it goes. You'll see I've got lots of sets of sugar press here. Let's go for Love. It is a really lovely swirly font. Now you'll see these ones come in a box rather than in a tray, which is nice in some ways because obviously you don't have the issue that you had with the old Sweet Stamp sets of them being quite tricky to store. And then of course there is a flip side that to find the letters you need, you basically have to search through. Now, Breda has made it a little bit easier for us because all of the capital letters are in one colour, in this case purple, and all the lowercase letters are in yellow. Oh, what you also get in the box is instructions on how to use them, and also a printout of what all the letters actually look like as well. So that's quite useful. So yeah, so I'm looking for a capital C, which will be purple. Okay, so there's my C. So we've got C, and we need an L. And again, just like with the Sweet Stamp, you get one of each letter, so if you want to use the same one more than once, you need to apply it separately. Now, one of the things I like about the sugar press lettering, if I show you two of the letters next to each other, you'll see that the sugar press letters are almost twice as deep as the Sweet Stamp letters. And I think that would make it a little bit easier if you wanted to use them kind of freehand like I did when I filled in any kind of issues that I'd had. Now, just like with the Sweet Stamp, there are a couple of different ways you can choose to apply these. The sugar press does also have its own kind of applicator pad, but I believe the sticky kind of bit is patented technology of the Sweet Stamp, whereas with the sugar press, you can use it with this Blue Tack Fast Tack spray. So I believe you just spray the pad with a little bit of the sticky spray, and then just like with the other one, you can then, just like before, kind of roll it around the cake. It seems that regardless of what product I'm using, I'm not very good at kind of applying even pressure. So I'm going to go in again with the individual letter and just make sure that that's a nice even impression. And actually I will say, in fairness to the sugar press, it's definitely easier to hold these ones in your hand and apply them individually if you want to. Oh, I'm making such a mess of this. I do apologise to everyone who's used these before and is basically judging me immensely right now. Okay, so we now have Finch's class written on the side. And again, similarly on the board, if I wanted to do kind of a message in the same way, I could just lay these on. But instead of using these, I'm going to take some of the additional elements and see if we can do something perhaps quite fun and summery. In this set, I've got some lovely kind of weather-themed details. So I've got like a sun, some rainbows and things. So perhaps we can take the sun from here, and I'm just going to lay that on the end next to my lettering. And again, you can either press down with your pad, like so, or with these, particularly these thicker letters, you can pretty much just push in by hand and then pull it out again. I'm going to try and squeeze a rainbow in as well, just above my lettering. So if I try and make that central, and again I can use my sticky pad, place it on top, push down, and then lift. And again, I imagine, because I'm clearly not very good at knowing how much pressure to apply, I imagine that's something that you get better with experience. So now we have our board with our message, with our sunburst and our rainbow. And then on the cake itself, we have finches and class. Now, as I mentioned earlier on, PME have also ventured into kind of this impression font space as well with their Fun Fonts collections. And I've got the letters here, but I know that they also now do numbers as well. In this box, you get 52 pieces, and that is your 26 capital letters and your 26 lowercase letters, which are kind of in a stack. And the difference with these ones is instead of having to worry about any of these applicators or pads or anything like that, each of the letters have a little handle on the back. So if I hold this up towards the camera, you should be able to see that it has a small little handle. And also on each one, if you look, there is a line across the middle of the letters so that you can line them up and get them all at the same height. So using the PME set, I'm going to add one more row to the lettering on my cake, and we're going to write goodbye. Now, like the sweet stamp, they're arranged alphabetically, so definitely nice and easy to find your letters. And like both the other sets, you do only get one of each letter. So if there is a message that you're writing that has more than one of the same letter, like the O in goodbye, you do have to reuse the same one twice. G-O-O-D-B-Y-E. But the difference this time, of course, is that I am applying them directly to the cake one at a time. So that's 7 letters, so the one I'm going to apply first is the one right in the middle, and I can put that in the middle of my existing message, and that's the letter D. And then we can work our way in both directions, adding in the rest of our text. Okay, and so there now you can see we have our goodbye made with the PME Fun Fonts, the finches made with the sweet stamp from AmyCakes, and then the class made with the love font from the Sugar Press. They all have their pluses, definitely, and they all have kind of some, I suppose, some things that you need to get used to or some things that you need to master. For example, I found it infinitely easier to apply these to the side of the cake, but I can see straight away that there are a fair few that I have pushed too hard on, so rather than a really subtle impression for painting, we've almost got quite a deep groove. With the sweet stamp from AmyCakes, I found it quite tricky to apply that around the cake, but actually it's given me a fairly even impression all the way along. Yes, I did have to go back and add in a couple of extra kind of pushes at the sides, but again, I think that's something you get used to with practice. And then similarly down at the bottom here with the Sugar Press, I had a very similar sort of issue actually as I did with the sweet stamp. So again, I think that's very much a learning curve, something you would get better at with practice. So there you go guys, that is my first attempt at using embossing kits on my cakes and my cake boards. Now off camera I have actually added a few more details to these, including a couple of these kind of like nice leafy impressions either side of my writing here on the cake, and also I've added in 2019 to 2020 on the top, and that time I've done it with quite a deep impression because I have plans for this. Similarly on the board I followed on with those kind of leaf patterns around the outside, but I've gone for more of a kind of a tropical leaf on the board, whereas on the cake itself it's probably more of the sort of leaves you might find here in the UK. Now of course the cake and the cake board here aren't actually finished. One of the most fun ways to work with embossing kits is to explore all the different ways that you can fill these impressions that you've made, whether that's with paint or sprinkles or metallics. And much as I would love to get into that in this video as well, I can imagine that this one is already running incredibly long. So I am going to follow this up with a part 2 where we'll be getting to grips with painting our cakes. So if you'd like to see me come back to this project and finish it off, make sure you hit that subscribe button before you go today. When it comes to giving you my final thoughts on the impression kits that I've been playing with today, I definitely think that I need to wait until I have finished these off, because I think there will be an element of how easy were they to paint and or to fill that goes into deciding which one was my favourite of any. But hopefully you've already seen that they've all got a lot of plus points to them, and actually I've really enjoyed getting to grips with them today. Anyway, I think I'm going to leave this video here. Thank you so much for watching, guys. As always, if you did enjoy this video, please do give it a massive thumbs up. And hopefully if you've remembered to hit that subscribe button, I'll see you at the same time next week for another video. Until then, happy caking.